All right, let's talk about Pot Limit Omaha, or as you'll hear it called, PLO. Now, there's a reason they call this the great game. It's this explosion of action and complexity that's pulling tons of players over from Texas Hold'em. But here's the thing, a lot of them jump in and find themselves completely, totally lost in the chaos. This quote I found on a pro poker forum, it just nails the feeling perfectly. For so many people starting out, PLO doesn't really feel like a strategy game at all. It feels more like, a wild gamble. You're just putting your money in the middle and praying you get lucky. So, that really gets to the heart of it, right? Is this game just pure chaos, a high-stakes slot machine? Or is there a deep hidden strategy under all that action? Well, that's what we're going to figure out. We're going to break down the absolute key ideas that turn a gambler into a true master of the great game.
Okay, Section 1. The Great Game of PLO. Look, if you're coming from No Limit Hold'em, your first jump into PLO is, well, it's a shock to the system. Let's dig into why that is.
So, where does that slot machine feeling actually come from? Well, it's really two big things. First, the action is just nonstop. But second, and this is the big one, the mathematical edge one hand has over another, what poker players call equity, it runs super, super close. Think about it. In Hold'em, pocket aces are like a king before the flop. They're a massive favorite. In PLO, not so much, not even close. Section 2, more cards, new rules. So why are things so different? Where does all this craziness come from? It all boils down to a few fundamental rule changes. Okay, so yeah, you get 4 cards instead of 2. That's the obvious part. But the single most important rule change, the one you absolutely have to burn into your brain, is this. You must use exactly 2 of your 4 whole cards to make your final hand. Not 1, not 3, exactly 2. I'm telling you, that one little rule is the engine that drives everything. All the complexity, all the action, it all comes from that. And because you've got 4 cards to work with, this is where things get wild. You can make these gigantic drawing hands. Take a wrap draw, for example. Let's say the board is 10-9-2, and you're holding King, Queen, Jack, 8. You have a straight draw, sure. But it's not just any straight draw. You can hit an ace, a king, a queen, a jack, an 8, or a 7 to make your straight. That is an insane number of cards that can come to save you, what we call outs. You just don't see anything that powerful in Hold'em. Okay, let me give you an example that's really going to blow your mind, especially if you're a Hold'em player. Imagine this. You're holding 10-10-9-2. The flop comes Queen of Hearts, Jack of Hearts, 8 of Clubs. You flopped the nut straight. That's the best possible hand right now. In a Hold'em game, you'd feel invincible, right? You're basically planning how you're going to stack your opponent. But this is PLO, and it is never that simple. What if your opponent is holding something like Ace of Spades, King of Hearts, 10 of Hearts, 7 of Spades? So against your made straight, they just have a bunch of draws, right? They've got a draw to a better straight, and they've got a draw to a flush. So who's the favorite here? You with the made hand, or them with just a draw? 63%. No, you heard that right. The drawing hand is a 63% favorite to win the pot. Let that sink in for a second. You flopped the nuts, the absolute best hand you can have, and you are a huge underdog. This is the core of PLO. This is what you have to understand. Made hands are incredibly vulnerable, and these monster draws can actually be the favorites in the hand. Section 3, surviving the swings. So when situations like that happen all the time, it leads to the single biggest hurdle for any new PLO player, the variance. The swings in this game, man, they can be absolutely brutal. And we're back to that quote again, because that slot machine feeling, it's not just in your head. It's a direct reflection of the math of the game. When equities run so close, when they're a 60-40 favorite or a 55-45 underdog all the time, your short-term results are going to be a roller coaster. They're going to swing wildly from what you expect to win in the long run. But here is the most important thing to get. Variance isn't just some excuse players use when they lose. It's a real, measurable, statistical concept. And once you start to understand it, you can prepare for it. It's the first step to handling the emotional gut punches of the downswings and, actually making good decisions when it feels like nothing is going your way. Okay, take a look at this chart. This is what a simulation of a low variance game looks like. See how all those different colored lines, which represent different possible outcomes over time, are all kind of bunched up? They stick pretty close to that straight line in the middle, which is your expected win rate. Your best days and your worst days aren't that far apart. And now, look at this. This is Pot Limit Omaha. We're talking about the exact same long-term win rate, but just look at the difference. The potential outcomes are just scattered all over the place. That means a huge, soul-crushing downswing, even if you're a good winning player. It's not just something that could happen, it's a statistical certainty. It will happen. This is the beast you've got to learn to tame. Section 4. The Solver Revolution. Okay, so if the game is this ridiculously complex and the variance is that insane, how in the world do the best players on the planet win consistently? Well, they're not just guessing. They have turned to some incredibly powerful tools to help them cut right through the chaos. What they use are called poker solvers. And what are they? Well, they're basically super powerful computer programs that have solved the game of poker. Seriously. You plug in any situation, your cards, the board, the bet sizes, and it will spit out the mathematically perfect, unexploitable way to play. We call this Game Theory Optimal, or GTO. It is literally like having a GTO supercomputer for a personal coach that tells you the perfect play every single time.
Now, there are a bunch of solvers out there, but PLO is such a complex beast that it requires its own specialized tools. For the absolute top pros, the go-to program is called Monker Solver. It's the one built from the ground up to handle the truly astronomical number of possible situations that can happen in PLO, both before the flop and after.
But, and this is so important, listen to this quote from Phil Galfond, who is an absolute legend of the game. He says the goal isn't to perfectly memorize everything the solver says and become a robot. That's impossible. The real goal is to use what the solver teaches you to build a simpler, solid, fundamental strategy, one that you can actually remember and use when you're at the table under pressure with real money on the line. All right, Section 5, exploiting the action. Because look, understanding all the GTO theory is great, but at the end of the day, making money in poker comes down to one thing: exploiting the mistakes your opponents are making. So, how do we actually do that in PLO? Let's talk about the big money mistakes, the most common leaks you're going to see from weaker players. Number 1, they play way too many garbage hands where the 4 cards just don't work together. They'll call raises from the blinds with almost anything. They have no idea how important position is. And the 2 biggest killers, they fall in love with hands like 2 pair on scary boards, and they constantly draw to hands that aren't the nuts, and that just gets them into a world of pain. These are the leaks you need to be looking for. Okay, so here's your starting game plan. 3 simple steps. First, and I can't stress this enough, prioritize nut hands. If you are drawing, you have to be drawing to the best possible hand. Getting all your chips in, drawing to the second best hand is the #1 way to lose your bankroll in PLO. It's non-negotiable. Second, master position. In a game this wild, being the last to act is everything. It gives you information, it lets you control the pot, it is your most powerful weapon. And third, you need to become a leak hunter. Actively target those mistakes we just talked about. Find the guy who plays too many bad hands and get in pots with him when you have position. Build your entire game around punishing their predictable errors. So there you have it. We've taken this game that looks like a chaotic slot machine and peeled back the layers to see the deep strategic puzzle underneath. The road to mastering PLO isn't about getting lucky. It's about embracing the complexity, preparing for the variance, and ruthlessly exploiting the action. So now that you've seen the roadmap, the only real question left is, are you ready to play the great game?